and welcome to the live series podcast brought to you by Amicus Recruitment. This is the podcast that gives you insight into the life and role of tech leaders from all over the world. Today, I'm joined by engineering manager over at Monzo, Jarryd Trokis. Hiya, Jarryd. How are you doing?
Hello, Heather. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Lovely. I'm brilliant. It's almost like we haven't just had this conversation before I hit record. Brilliant.
No comment.
So yeah, let's just dive straight in then, Jarryd. I know I said you're over at Monzo, and I guess a lot of people will have heard of Monzo and will know what they do, but just in case people aren't familiar with you and your work and also what Monzo do, maybe just give us an insight into your role there, and then a little bit about exactly what it is Monzo does too.
Fab. Well, I'll start with what Monzo do, because that's far more important than my role. Monzo is on a mission to make money work for everyone. And in order to do that, one of the best ways to start was to become a bank. And many people will know Monzo as the cool orange, it's called hot coral, the orange cards. And yeah, so we're a fully digital bank who are on a mission to change the way that people have and manage their finances. And then my role in that is, as engineering manager, is to build and develop high-performing teams.
Amazing. So
short and sweet.
No, I like that. That's great. Let's talk about those teams then. How is it going to start off with? But also, is it kind of a remote team that you're running? How big is the team? Like, just tell us a little bit about that.
Fab. I'll focus on what I would consider my primary team, which is the backend platform squad. Most companies or big tech companies will have something similar in engineering effectiveness or platform or whatever they call their discipline. And that's my sort of primary team. There are 6 individuals. One is away on secondment at the moment in another team doing some other interesting work. But the other individuals I have are responsible for making every other engineer at Monzo more efficient, more effective, safer, more confident, and effectively just happier in their jobs. The scope, as you can imagine, is huge, and engineers, I don't know how many you work with on a day-to-day basis, but they are the hardest people in the world to please. That's our mission. That's what we're here to do. The other squad that I look after is a squad who are focused on internal security and controls in terms of who can access what in our platform. And they're doing some really cool stuff in terms of like automation and linking things back to people data, which is very interesting.
Yeah, it sounds well interesting. Are both those teams remote then, or how is it working over there?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that. So some of the people in the team are based in London, which is near our headquarters. But no, most of my team are remote. I myself am fully remote. And I think a large part of that is due to the pandemic, and most people decided to opt in for a distributed or remote working setup.
Yeah, I think we've seen, obviously it's super common now, isn't it? I think especially in tech teams, for people to be working at least hybrid and flexibly. I don't know, like I'd say at least 80 to 90% of the guests on the podcast all run pretty much fully remote teams. So there's no surprise there. But what is interesting to find out, even though it's a similar situation, a lot of people have different approaches to managing a remote team.
Sure.
Have you managed remote teams like in the past, or is it something that's kind of new to you? Have you had to adapt your approach to kind of management style to go with the remote? How's that working out?
I was very fortunate in that I started my remote journey as a front-end engineer at Couchbase, which is a database technology company, in 2020. So I joined there in January 2020, which was just before COVID happened. And that was a fully remote position. The company itself is based in Silicon Valley. The Bay Area in California. Couldn't remember where that was for a second. And so that was my like dipping my foot in to the water of remote work. I was then promoted to engineering manager at Couchbase, and I managed a team. I think when I left, the team was at 13 people. And they were distributed right across the world, from somewhere in Canada, somewhere on the East Coast, somewhere on the West Coast of the US, somewhere in England. And I don't know if I should be proud of this, but I have never met a person that I managed yet, although that, fingers crossed, I might get to meet one or two of them soon.
I think the fact that you want to meet them is a good sign. I don't know if it's something to not be proud of. I think that's kind of common, isn't it? Like, I think, especially during the pandemic, I guess there was a lot of onboarding that people just didn't meet their colleagues at any point. What was that like then? But I guess it was at Couchbase. You said that when you left, you had a team of 13. Did that team grow while you were there? Did you have an input on the hires and the processes? And obviously it was remote onboarding as well, so that must have been a bit of a challenge.
Yeah. So two things to say on that. The team was 5 when I joined, and then managing it grew it to 13. I was very fortunate to have one of the best managers I think I've ever had. His name is Aaron Greenlee. And he was tremendous at onboarding people. He was a real sort of, I was going to say workhorse, but that's probably being a bit unkind. I think he was very committed to the mission of what we were trying to do. And so he helped massively with the onboarding. But yeah, the team itself, the growth was something that I was helping to move forward. It's very interesting, remote onboarding. It kind of, I remember back when I joined Couchbase, and even when I joined Monzo, the idea of remote onboarding of your first day being opening a laptop as opposed to walking into an office was something that was quite interesting.
Yeah, I guess with a tech team as well, how much onboarding really is there to do, is apart from just kind of, here's the projects, get cracking. Especially when they're at home already, like you said, there's not really a lot of tours or introductions or things like that to do. But so how did you was there any challenges that came with that though, in terms of the remote onboarding? I know you said it's kind of a simple thing to do to onboard remotely. Do you think that that's probably the way things could be heading with more remote teams becoming like more common? Do you think remote onboarding doesn't have any flaws, and do you think it can become something that everybody kind of adapts to, or do you think it did come with flaws, and if it did, how did you kind of tackle them?
That's a really interesting question. I think it has to come down largely, I think, to the individual. I know that for me, I rarely missed the element of like walking into an office and meeting people and putting faces to names and just getting a sense of what you're a part of. For some people, they love the fact that they can sit at their home and crack open their laptop and, you know, get started in a new job. I think that there's trade-offs, right? I don't like to call it pros and cons. I think there's trade-offs with either of those things. I think remote onboarding is very hard to get across the culture. It's very difficult to get that intangible sense of what a company is about when you're not in the actual location. You don't see the decor, or you don't see how the office runs. You don't see how people interact with each other. You kind of miss those social cues. On the other hand, I think you can be more thorough, and you sort of got your process, and as a remote team, you just follow that process, and then the next batch of people to come in, it's rinse and repeat, and you sort of tweak it and refine it. I don't think there's a very clear way of doing that in person. And so these are the kind of trade-offs that we have to make. But I think largely speaking, it has to come back to the individual. If you're somebody who prefers an in-person experience or a hybrid sort of way of working, then absolutely, I think, we need to find a way to onboard you in a way that meets that. If you're somebody who is largely antisocial, perhaps, I would put myself in that category at times, then yeah, we need to find a way to make that work for you.
Sure. Let's talk about that then, in terms of talking about an individual within a team. Obviously, onboarding is one thing, but then I guess as a manager as well, you want to get to know them and what impact they want to have on the company. So how do you kind of prize that out of them? I know you said that sometimes, I guess not to stereotype, but a lot of kind of members of tech teams, a lot of developers and things do, kind of tend to be a little bit more introverted, perhaps. Some of them anyway, not all, obviously, but and I think we're all a little introverted, right? But how do you kind of prize that information out of somebody, and how do you adapt that individual's wants to what the rest of the team want to do, and how do you quite literally manage their expectations of how they can have an impact on the company?
I think if anyone had a clear cut, like black and white answer to that question, they should write the authoritative book on managing people. I don't think there is a one size fits all. For me, it is a more direct approach. I literally ask that question as one of the first questions I ask people in our first one-to-one is, what is the impact you want to have here? And some people are a bit unsure, or they haven't yet phrased it, and that's okay. Part of my job then is to try and help them put that in a way that, you know, they understand it and internalize it and kind of try to achieve that. For others like me, I have a very clear mission of what I'm trying to do and the impact that I want to have. And I warn everybody who like asks me that question, or when we have this one-to-one, I give them the 3.5 minute verbatim, almost, you know, I've almost got it down to an art of this, like articulating the impact and the mission. I won't do it now, but if anybody was interested, you know, feel free. I might have to record it. It might be more efficient.
I think if it's something that managers will benefit from, I say go for it.
It's something that's incredibly personal to me, so I don't know that they would, but the one line, like, sort of catch all is my life's sort of mission, or from a career perspective, is to build something beautiful. And that used to look like building user experiences, or beautiful UIs, or that little interaction on that button that would like delight people. But now it's more focused on building high-performing teams, which are effectively, my definition of a high-performing team is a team that is built on high trust, so that the members trust each other, and I trust them and they trust me. They meet the commitments, they deliver what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it. And then fundamentally, I think that any high-performing team should be having fun. I remember a VP at Couchbase used to say he judged the health of any team by how many laughs they had in a team meeting. And I think for me, that's a real sort of health marker of any team, is how much do you laugh, how much do you actually enjoy working with the people that you're working with. I say to some of my team, you know, I spend more time with you than I do with my wife, and even though they're remote, right, like I still see them and I still talk to them probably more than I do my wife, who's literally, you know, in the house in the day. So I think it's so important that we at least like, to a certain degree, the people that we work with.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, isn't it? How much you laugh in a meeting. I think when I was, I think if I thought about that here at Amicus, I think there is quite a lot of, I really hate using the word banter because I think it's quite cringy, but do you know what I mean? Like when you kind of get a good sense about an office, don't you? And it is kind of based on how much you're having a laugh with it as well. And but like you said, on the flip side of that, how much you can knuckle down and produce. And generally the two, even though they're kind of opposites, they go hand in hand. You know, happiness kind of creates productivity, doesn't it, at the end of the day?
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
it's a really, really good point. So in terms of like kind of sticking with the individuals within a team, how do you kind of approach, not to say that you've ever been in a situation where you've not had a happy team, but how do you kind of boost productivity in terms of connecting your team as individuals? Like, do you go out of your way to connect people to each other, or how, you know, do you encourage kind of that camaraderie? I know, obviously, especially with it being remote too, I guess that must be a little bit more difficult than just kind of getting everyone in a room.
I often have people comment saying, you know, Jarryd, you've got tremendous energy, you bring passion, and you do all these things. What people don't recognize, or perhaps don't know, is that when I close my laptop at the end of the day, I am exhausted. I am 100% like, I'm done. And I'm not like that as an individual. I'm not always the big sort of rah kind of everybody geeing up, right? Like that has to, and I'm not saying I put it on, it is in me. But to run like that consistently, it actually exhausts me. But I do that because I know in this setting, if I don't give, like, I think there's to put it in networking terms, there's like a data loss, right? Like over a camera, or over a call or something like this, there's an element of me that's lost in translation and transmission. And I think if in order to make up for that loss, I have to put in 100 I hate the phrase, but like I have to put in more in order for you to just kind of hit the expected baseline. And so in a remote setting, there are things that I do that some would consider extreme or like outlandish behavior, because I'm trying to build that culture in my teams. Now, that's not to say I don't go out of my way to be offensive, and I don't go out of my way to do things that are considered bad. But I certainly push the envelope when it comes to, what's our attitude in planning. Are we just sitting there staring at a screen, like talking? It's like, no, actually, like, hey, everybody, this is the reminder, like, this is the mission, this is what we're here to do, this is our vision, connecting them always back to the why are we here. Or in socials, like, I hate them, but remote socials, they're apparently a thing. Everybody did a Zoom quiz, I'm sure, during lockdown. That hasn't gone away. And if you just go on that call and participate, and you're effectively just an observer, nobody really enjoys that. Like, I don't think there's anyone who sits and goes, oh, I just love a Zoom quiz and just nobody talks. I don't think that's why people join those calls or join those socials. There's got to be an element of actually somebody who's in there, who's really passionate about seeing people, and who goes, isn't this great? Like, we're in this together. Look at everybody's sort of connecting in, and let's have a laugh. And if it means that somebody puts on an outfit and gets a green screen and minimizes themselves so they look like a tiny bartender, which is something that's happened, then, great. That's something that is different and is outlandish in a way that, like, it brings people together.
That sounds amazing. I kind of want to get involved with one of your socials now. You've got a virtual bartender. I don't even know how that would work, but I like the sound of it.
He's that particular individual is talented when it comes to video editing. So yeah.
Brilliant. No, that is brilliant. But I was going to ask you what your approach is to kind of steadying and balancing a culture within a remote team as well. I guess we've covered a little bit of that. But what I guess, it's interesting to hear how you would energize your team remotely. When you first started at, let's use Monzo as an example, but obviously feel free to, if you've always kind of had this sort of approach. But how, as a manager, did you kind of, because this is your second role as a manager, right? Since Couchbase, or
in an official engineering manager capacity, yes.
Okay, cool. So in terms of that, I know this might be a hard question off the bat, but how did you initially want to approach your management style? Did you think about it, or were you going to see kind of what the team was like and then adapt to that? Or did you kind of have a vision of what you wanted to be like as a manager and how you wanted to be seen as a manager as well before you went into it?
I think again, it's not necessarily a binary answer. I think for me, at least, I have a very clear motive and way and mission and approach to management and to leadership itself. I think management and leadership, I use those terms interchangeably. They're not the same. So I'll stick with leadership. I'm very fortunate in that I've known a number of great leaders who have been incredibly influential in my life, friends, mentors, just people who I've known. But one of the best things that's a friend of mine said to me was, if you're a leader, allow people to see your weakness, because it's easier to follow somebody with a limp. And in the abstract, I think what that's trying to say is, and it's certainly something I've tried to live by, is live authentically and be authentic about what you don't know. And, being unafraid to say, hey, there's a gap in my knowledge, I'm not comfortable. And certainly that was my experience at Monzo. I'm a front-end engineer by trade. I don't know very much about platform. I have never written a Kubernetes manifest before. But being in that environment and being able to say, I don't have the answers, I don't know what you're talking about, can you show me, can you help me? For some reason has allowed others to be authentic and say, look, I don't know the answer either. Can we figure this out together? And I mean, that's one example of a much broader approach, which for want of a better term, is relational leadership. I think that this idea of, like a commander who has a position and dictates what people should do and where they should go. It's outdated and archaic. I think there's something far more interesting and far more effective in saying, hey, we're in this together. I might be responsible, and I have to be the one who's accountable for this team, but there's something in it saying, actually, we're in this together. Like, can we help each other? Can we do this? And on the way, building a relationship that means actually when we get there, the victory or the achievement is so much better. Or when things are really tough, it's the relationship that helps get us through, not the fact that there's blame or, or you're the manager, so it's your fault. I think actually being able to put an arm around somebody and say, come on, we can do this because we're in it together is far more powerful. Yeah.
So having each other's back from the very beginning and making sure that the foundations are in place with the individuals in the team. That's a really good point, isn't it? And I suppose I never really thought about that sort of aspect of things, because I guess a lot of people would go into a managerial aspect and think about what they're going to do in the future and how, they're thinking a lot about the particular projects that they've got to work on and how they're going to tackle them, but just getting right down to the basics and doing the basics well of actually managing the individuals on the team. It's a really good point that you make. So I've got kind of like a penultimate sort of topic that I want to kind of bring on to, because I can see the guitars in the background there, and it's kind of visually segueing me into my penultimate point. And I kind of ask a lot of the guests this because I think it's quite interesting, get a lot of different answers. Kind of what do you do outside of work, and does it kind of impact? It could be because you might have like lots of coding projects on the side or whatever, or kind of hobbies that can impact work in a really positive way, and if it doesn't impact it at all, then that's fine as well. But I was quite interested to kind of get to the other side of people on the podcast and find out what they do outside of work as well. So what do you get up to?
I have 2 young children who keep me very busy. I have a wife who is tremendous at making sure that we're constantly involved in a social calendar. So I often say my life is managed for me, but that's being a bit disingenuous. I think I'm very fortunate in that she has loads of good friends, and we together have loads of good friends who we love to see. So the vast majority of my time is taken up by family, friends, and looking after my children. I do, yeah, the guitars are there. Yeah, I do love playing music. I have a bunch of side projects that will probably never see the light of day. I'm hugely into my sport. I love going to the gym. You can't see it, but there's a bunch of art around. I love sort of exploring creative outlets. So I write poetry, I write journals or blogs. I read quite a lot. Insert generic activity here, right? Like it's kind of my life is made up by tasters of lots of different things that happen to capture my interest.
I wouldn't say that they were necessarily generic, to be honest. I think that's just a jack of all trades right there, isn't it? No, that's impressive. That's really cool. And especially I think it's good to kind of have a lot going on outside of work. I think it keeps you pretty stimulated, doesn't it? And by the sounds of it, you've obviously got plenty going on to keep you busy. Do you ever get burnt out, I guess, with a lot? Like, do you kind of, do you feel the need to wind down, I guess? Because a lot of people kind of, I've met a few people and then they might get, I'm generally someone who can't really sit on the sofa and just watch telly all night. I've got to kind of get out and do something, and but then I don't really get burnt out either by that, but some people do. So do you get kind of burnt out at any point? How do you kind of deal with that, or do you do one of your millions of activities to kind of wind down, or how do you approach that?
You've caught me right at the final stages of burnout. I haven't had a proper holiday for about 1.5 years, which I'm not proud of, but it's just the way that things happen when I left Couchbase and started at Monzo and holidays and all the rest of it. So yeah, I do get burned out. And I think the way I identify that is when you can hear that, at least I hope you can hear that I'm clearly passionate about what I do. I love my job and I love the people who are put in my care. But when I feel like that has lost meaning and it's lost that where it feels like work and it feels like I've got to drag myself to my computer, I know that that's a sign of, okay, hang on, I probably need a break. So my millions of side projects and things like that are great, but actually there comes a time where I just need a complete switch off, and I need to go and have a holiday and sit on a beach, or, you know, just not be in my house. And coming right back to the remote conversation, I actually think that's been the real challenge for me, is that now, you know, it went from like 90% of my day being out the house to pretty much 90% of my day being in the house. There've been entire weeks where I'll get to a Sunday morning and say to my wife, I'm like, oh, I haven't left the house yet this week. And that's quite worrying, judging by your facial reaction.
It's not ideal, is it? No, but I
no, and that's what I mean. So, you know, when you're in that environment day in and day out, and everything looks the same, and the four walls kind of, you know, days blend in, and it's like, oh, you know, I haven't seen anything other than this room for a week. That grates on you, and especially someone like me, right? Like I have, like you said, I have a load of hobbies and things that I love to do, and sometimes it just happens that I don't get an opportunity to do that. And so, yeah, there's got to be a balance. And actually, let me just interject to the point. I said that, and I don't actually believe there has to be a balance. I'm a stronger believer in radical imbalance. I think I talk about this idea that actually, if you want to be great at anything, you can't hold things in balance, because if you're holding too many things in balance, you're invariably not going to be good at any one thing. And so I love this idea of, you know, if I'm at work, then I'm 100% at work. If I'm with family, I'm 100% with family. I haven't mastered that, but that's actually what I'm believing. That's what I believe in. And that's where I think I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, I like that. And I like, because I was just about to say how, you know, do you go about perfecting things if you're trying to kind of juggle everything, but then you came in as well and answered it. That's perfect. No, that's super interesting. And that, yeah, I know my face changed when you said that you hadn't left the house in a week, but to be fair, like, I've worked remote roles as well in the past, and it does happen on occasion. You know, you might go out into the garden or something, but that's kind of it for maybe 4 or 5 days if you're having a bit of a hectic week. So it does happen, but it's good to, yeah, I would agree with you, just get a holiday booked, right? You just got to get away, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, well, that kind of segues me into my last question then, and thanks for circling back to the remote topic as well. You've really structured this nicely by accident.
No worries.
But yeah, I ask everybody this, and I get some super interesting answers. So no pressure. But what sort of advice? Obviously, you've risen through the ranks now to get this brilliant role at Monzo, and it sounds like you're really nailing it over there as well. And it's obviously, you're somebody that listeners and viewers can obviously look up to. So, what advice would you have for kind of professionals in tech who want to be in a similar position to you?
I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and I said, if you're aspiring to be an engineering manager, don't. I wouldn't encourage anyone to do it unless you are somebody who is passionate about seeing others succeed where you won't. I've heard too many horror stories of engineers who thought that engineering management was the only way for them to get promoted and for them to rise to, you know, go through the ranks, and the damage that they've done to people because they didn't understand the mechanics or the requirement of being a leader, is something I wish I could prevent. If I had like a side mission, it would be to stop that from happening. Yeah, I have enough people on my team who've got those stories who could definitely, you know, say that like that's not a good idea. However, if you are somebody who is who can confidently say that somebody else's success is more important to me than my own, then I think there are. I love the three. So I'll give you 3 tips. Number 1, read more. I read a breadth of books, philosophy, on leadership. I love autobiographies. especially from notable leaders. And there's a couple of books I can recommend. Extreme Ownership is the book on leadership and how to win friends and influence people by Dale Carnegie is another fabulous book. Number 2, I would say practice compassion, empathy, and kindness where you are. I don't think leadership happens by accident. I think leadership is something that is developed over time, and it's developed by looking after the person to your left and the person to your right and caring for them first before you look to progress. And then thirdly, keep on honing your engineering craft. I don't think it's unhealthy to flip-flop between leadership and engineering positions. I think in order to be an effective leader, you have to understand the pain or the delight or the problems that the people you're leading are experiencing. And the only way to do that is to keep a handle on, writing code, shipping code, working out problems, and getting into the nitty-gritty of like technical solutions.
That's amazing. I love that. I'm definitely going to put a link to those books as well in the description, because I think they'll be super useful recommendations.
Cool.
But yeah, I love that. Yeah, and especially love the point of kind of, look after who's on your left and who's on your right. Just kind of start with those people, and then you're going to learn a lot from it, as well as, and other people can see that empathetic side of you as well. Jarryd, honestly, it's been absolutely lovely having you on. I've just got to do my little bit of spiel, and then I'll say bye to you properly, and I've just got to try and do it all in one breath because I never quite manage it. But if you're watching on YouTube, you can hover over the logo in the corner, hit subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok for all the updates. Head over to our website, amicusjobs.com, for tech news, webinars, blogs, and keep up to date on all the latest Python, Golang, and JavaScript and machine learning roles all over the globe. Almost did it in one. I don't think I've quite got there yet, but it'll take some practice. But Jarryd, thank you so much again. It's been such a cool episode.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure.